Hey there, this is Andrew Farr with Utility Contractor Magazine, and today we are going to have a quick conversation on the topic of powering equipment, some of the components that go into that, and some of the trends for utility contractors today. So, in order to do this, I have a great guest joining me, Peter Mills, Industry Sales Director for Construction with Regal Rexnord. And just a few words on Peter before I bring him into the discussion here. Peter has a background in the hydraulic industry for both mobile and industrial applications. During his time with Regal Rexnord, he has served as a regional sales director and now covers the construction market globally for the company. Peter, maybe we could start off right there and just pick up on my introduction a little bit and give us a brief overview of Regal Rexnord, the role it serves in the construction space, and specifically some of the work you guys do in the utility construction space.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you very much for having me on here. Great to connect with you and share all the good things that Regal Rexnord is doing for the construction utility industry. Just a little bit of overview of Regal Rexnord. We are a multinational power transmission company component manufacturer. And what we do is we play in all different manufacturing spaces of all shapes and sizes. We manufacture a wide breadth of product and components that transmit power, create power, transmit power, and ultimately provide different solutions to the different industries that we play in. As it pertains to the construction and utility space, we really play on the mobile side of equipment and the different types of equipment out there from excavators, bulldozers, front end loaders, backhoes, those types of equipment, and supply components to those different OEMs, again, of all shapes and sizes, depending upon the application and ultimately what the application and solution calls for. Um, we partner with all different OEMs across the globe, and work on providing different solutions to those applications as they arise.
Yeah, and so taking the next step there, as a supplier, what are some of those trends you're seeing in the equipment space, and specifically as it relates to equipment like loaders and backhoes and bulldozers, excavators, that kind of thing?
Yeah, very good question. The electrification word has been out there for some time, and it's still a buzzword. But I'm seeing more and more, RFQs and different designs for different pieces of equipment coming across my desk as far as hybridization. So, you got the old legacy style of a diesel engine driving the piece of equipment, and that's been around for ages. The electrification piece is fully electric, battery powered, and the hybridization of those pieces of equipment are combining both of those capabilities into providing an overall solution for the end user. And again, the hybridization is come up quite a bit recently. I think we're seeing that diesel engines aren't going away anytime soon, and you still need to be able to provide more efficient packages from a driveline standpoint to the end customer, and that's where hybridization is coming in. And obviously, with Regal Rexnord and our broad portfolio of products, we're able to play in the old-fashioned diesel engine solutions. We're able to play in the electrification, but obviously combining those two with the hybridization side, we're able to play in that space as well.
Yeah, electrification and as you're talking about hybridization is something that I had a feeling we were going to get into. So, in terms of hybridization, Peter, how does that help the end user uh, improve equipment, productivity, efficiency, and uptime? And what are the things utility contractors should look for?
Good question. So, with diesel engines, you got a lot of power, bigger package. Electrification, maybe not as much power, but a smaller package or a little bit more energy efficient. And so the hybridization is really combining those two. So, in theory, you're able to downsize a diesel engine and still pull power off of that with a power generator or electric motor and drive those electric motors or generators from the diesel engine, but you're able to downsize that. So downsizing the diesel engine, you're not using as much, diesel fuel, which ultimately less diesel fuel goes straight to the bottom line of the end customer, the operator. And so, being more efficient that way. and still having that power dense package to drive the piece of equipment and ultimately do what the job that it needs to do at the same time. Um, as far as different, features to look for, it's really, up to the end customers what the functionality of the piece of equipment, what they're trying to gain out of it. But, the efficiency side of things and, stuff that affects the bottom line is obviously critical to their business's operation. And, being able to be as efficient as possible and still again have the power that the equipment is designed for to do the job is obviously very critical.
Absolutely. And as we said, just increasing productivity and uptime for utility contractors is obviously hugely important for them. So I guess with that said, Peter, maybe you could walk us through some of the solutions that Regal Rexnord is working on right now in this regard.
So we've got, again, it really depends on the application and what the individual component is needed for the piece of equipment. But with our breadth of products, we've got diesel engine couplings that we've made different design changes to our standard product that we've rolled out different solutions with our Senta TIR coupling, which allows a piece of equipment to potentially lower their idle speed and ultimately be able to still protect the driven components that are driven off of the diesel engine, but being able to decrease the idle speed. And again, going back to the diesel savings side of things, you're able to decrease the RPMs that the engine's running when it's sitting idle, and that goes straight to the bottom line. From a more on the electric side, but going into the hybrid overall, hybrid design, we've got different IPB brakes from our Warner Electric side of things, where decreased footprint, still holding capability, holding capacity, that we're able to spec into an overall solution. And then in the middle of that, we've got our Durst pump drive solutions where historically those have driven hydraulic pumps, but as equipment designs roll out where you still have a potential need for a hydraulic pump in one application, but a electric motor in another, or electric generator, we have the capability with our Durst pump drives to pull the power off the engine, change the ratios, and in the same application spec in a hydraulic pump with an electric motor or electric generator on the same setup, to obviously complete that hybrid design. A lot of different solutions out there. Again, with the massive portfolio that Regal Rexnord has, it's really on a case by case basis as far as the overall application, what it calls for. But that's where Regal Rexnord and our engineering team and our commercial team thrive is working with those end customers and OEMs to design and optimize the overall solution that they're introducing to the market.
As we're talking about this, you're just reminded about just how many components, how many different parts go into construction equipment when you consider pumps and hydraulics and some of these things you're talking about, Peter. So I'd love to talk about this further. I'm sure we could talk for a lot longer about this, but it's been great to chat with you for a couple minutes today.
Would love to. And again, thank you very much for having me on here, Andrew. Much appreciated.
All right, and that'll do it for Utility Contractor Magazine. I am Andrew Farr, and we'll catch you next time.